Hi, everybody, and welcome to the Connections with Cass podcast. My name is Cass, and I'm a psychic medium and spiritual coach, and the host of this podcast where we talk about all things spiritual, all things healing, and a lot about mediumship as well. As a psychic medium and spiritual coach, I do feel it's my job here on this earth to help bridge the gap between the spirit world and the physical world, and to provide some higher perspective awareness of how we are not here alone, and that we are not just human bodies traveling this earth having a human experience, but rather energetic beings, souls that incarnate here as humans having a beautiful spiritual experience. For this episode of today's podcast, I'm so excited to be talking about something that's a little bit off-brand for me. It's something that you might not lump into the psychic medium category or spiritual coaching for that matter, but it is something that affects pretty much all of us that are watching this. It's something that is plaguing our society in recent years, and it's something that's plaguing our relationships. And that is the label of a narcissist and an empath. This diabolical relationship creates so much conflict and contrast in our lives. And for once and for all, I want to look at it from a spiritual perspective, something that hasn't been done yet, and something that I think could greatly help the situation. I don't believe that anything on this earth is happening by accident. And it's not a coincidence that empaths are very attracted to narcissists and narcissists are attracted to empaths. I also don't think it's a horrible thing. And I also don't think it's an evil plan created by the universe. So how can we look at this a little bit different? How can we understand it from a higher perspective? Why does this happen in the universe? If there is a benevolent God, then why do those situations exist? Why do empaths go through narcissistic abuse? Why do narcissists live in complete peril for their entire lives? On this episode, we're going to talk all about that and how to help navigate any situation you might be in, whether you are the narcissist or whether you are the empath. Let's start by talking about what it means to have an energetic body and a human body, because I feel as though that is really the foundation and the basis for how we should approach all mental health issues. There is so much more than just the neurons in our brain or the conditioning that's been done in our human experience. We are energetic beings that are constantly receiving communication energetically and giving out energetic communication as well. Essentially, our soul decides to come down into earth and takes on this human capacity or this human body, and our soul still exists in an energetic frequency within ourselves, within our bodies. And you can either think of this soul as being inherently within you or almost like a bubble around you. It doesn't really matter as long as you understand that not only are you a human body, but you're an energetic being as well. And then for the sake of this conversation, I'd like for you to imagine your energetic body to be a bubble around your human body. This energetic bubble is with you all of the time. And when you're born, it's clear and it's functioning at its optimal capacity. But as soon as we start to be conditioned through the human experience on day one, this energy starts to be manipulated in certain ways that affect our physical body, our minds, and our energetic being itself. Within this energetic body, we have chakras. These chakras exist, you can imagine, right outside your body from the base of your spine to the top of your head. Essentially, they're interpreting the energy that is coming in and going out of our energetic being. These chakras are like energetic portals or communication centers for this energy to be processed and come into our awareness. Now, as our energetic centers are conditioned and become imbalanced because of the negative and traumatic human experiences that we encounter throughout our lives, we start to condition ourselves and program our minds and program our nervous systems to react in certain ways to different stimuli. Now, let's relate this all to narcissists and empaths. So empaths are pretty straightforward, right? You can see how they're receiving energetic communication from other people in higher realms of the universe constantly, and it's overwhelming. And that's why empaths get very tired. That's why empaths take on other people's emotions. That's why empaths don't put themselves first, because they are feeling other people's energies and emotions so strongly. And I think in the mental health world, we label this as we're taking on other people's emotions and we're deeply feeling other people's emotions as empaths. But I'd like to look at it from a higher perspective. If you imagine an empath walking around with this energetic bubble, Now, this empath is probably born prone to receiving energetic communication a little bit stronger than most, right? And so I consider myself an empath. I also considered myself a narcissist for some time, which is a diabolical claim because supposedly you can't be both, but I'll explain later. So, as an empath, I do believe that I was born to just receive and understand energetic communication at a higher level from birth. Now, what that meant for me as a kid was that I had imaginary friends and that I had a very vivid imagination and I dreamt very vividly. What that meant for me as an adult was that I was taking on so much information, energetic communication from other people and other entities in the universe unknowingly, that I was getting very drained, and I sought out drugs and alcohol to help numb that as well as just avoid having to deal with it. And I really struggled to just perform basic tasks in life. Basically, every human aspect of my life was really upside down in a lot of ways. And it wasn't until I started to understand how energy works and how I was taking on certain information and how I could actually put words to what I was receiving, like through my mediumship skills, that my whole energetic being started to settle. But that only happened after I did healing work. And what healing work does is it goes into the deepest wounds and traumas within you that have left an energetic imprint in your being that have then caused your chakras to become misaligned. And when your chakras become misaligned, they're going to seek out really detrimental energy in order to help fill the holes with matching energy. So we have to think about it as we are a mirror or a reflection of the energy that we're taking in. So if you're an empath and you have really deep wounds and trauma, when you go out into public, your energy is going to be an energetic match for someone else that's going through that. And then that's going to double down on your energetic vibration and feel really, really low and tiring. Now, that being said, you can also pick up on higher vibrational energy, which is also exhausting. But essentially, your energetic centers are doing double time, and it's causing more energetic work for you to process it all. And especially when you're unconscious of how this is really happening, it becomes so, so, so draining. Now, why does the empath have wounds and trauma? Oftentimes, I think that empaths are born with a natural ability to receive and communicate energy. However, I also have found through my work as a spiritual coach that most empaths have also experienced either a narcissistic parent or some sort of childhood trauma where they had to become very sensitive to the energy in the home in order to protect themselves. So oftentimes an empath will have to listen really closely to see even how footsteps are approaching a door before the person or parent comes to the door in order to protect themselves and feel safe as a child. Or perhaps you're constantly listening to the tone of someone's voice to see what kind of mood they're in and how you should react. So empaths not only are born naturally a little bit more inclined to understand energy, they're then conditioned to constantly need to understand that very sensitive energy that's coming in. And it keeps being reconditioned so that when they become an adult, it's just second nature. And that's where we have a problem. When something that comes from a trauma becomes second nature and is an instinctual reaction in the mind and the nervous system, that is when we experience the detriments of any mental health issue. So, we understand empaths from an energetic perspective, so now let's talk about narcissists. Narcissists are typically classified as people that are very grandiose in nature, have an inflated self-esteem, are not able to experience empathy, and use really derogatory and abusive emotional manipulation and verbal attacks in order to control the energy within a relationship. And I want you to notice how I said control the energy within a relationship. So instead of talking about how the narcissist actually acts in the human form, I want to talk about their energy. So for narcissists, they often experience childhood trauma and or have a narcissistic parent as well. I also believe that a narcissist is born more inclined to feel energy. And that is something that I think is a new way of thinking about it, because most people from a mental health perspective would say that wouldn't be true because they're not able to feel others' emotions or empathy. But emotions are much different than energy. And I find that when we look at narcissism, we look at things from a very human perspective that doesn't allow for the processing of energy to contribute to the reactionary behavior of the individual. Essentially, the narcissist experiences extreme abuse and trauma and experiences that at a very heightened level of energy because of the way they are naturally born, just like empaths. They are then conditioned to avoid that at all costs. That is reinforced as well by the narcissistic parent that is doing that to their child and to their family as well. And so when the narcissist becomes an adult, they do everything they can to protect themselves from feeling energy. And because through this process, they have released their own emotion and feeling their own energy, they've also lost the connection to their own soul. So essentially, narcissists are walking around with this soul and with this human body, and they are completely detached. And there is absolutely no energetic function of communication that is channeling properly through their energy systems. The problem is that when we start to experience that detachment, our mind starts to make narratives. And it's our ego and our mind that really are the problem in this situation. So while it's a function of our energetic capacity that is causing this negative experience for the narcissist, it's really the ego and the mind's attachment to that energetic vibration that then the ego and the mind start to create stories and narratives of, well, you're the most handsome person in the world. You're the most handsome person in the world. You're the most handsome person in the world. And you need to prove that through being with tons of women. Or perhaps someone is very, very successful in their work and that is it. Well, I make all of the money. And no one else is as good as me at making money, or whatever it may be. The latching onto certain parts of their life is the only way that they can function in this human capacity. Much like the empath does, as they start to care more about the energy of others and notice the energy of others more than they do their own. And oftentimes with narcissists and empaths, their sense of self is completely dependent on, for the empath, others' emotions, and for the narcissist, they have nothing. And that's the problem. They are so lost that they just cling to anything that they can to make themselves feel good. Whether that be this grandiose sense of good looks, which many people have that are narcissists, or perhaps they're very charismatic. They are literally forming any sort of identity they can because they've lost connection to their soul through the way that they have stopped processing energy within their chakra system. And empaths are doing the same exact thing. They have lost their sense of self and are operating in this human function based on other people's experiences and not their own. So if we look at it from this perspective and we look at it from an energetic perspective, both are experiencing energy at very high frequencies as children. And they're both creating mechanisms to avoid pain within their own emotional selves as children by processing energy in different ways. Now at this point, I'm going to talk about why these two might come together and what the purpose universally is. Let's just say we're flying in a hot air balloon. And we look down at Earth and there are these two humans, but we don't see the human. We just see these bubbles of energy. Now, a human that is functioning at their optimal capacity, that is really connected to their soul and is connected to this higher vibrational experience that we have spiritually on Earth, that bubble is going to be filled with this beautiful light. And through that light, the human can see their next steps. They can see who's good for them. They can see where things might go wrong. And they are very in a flow state, just floating along the streets of Earth and navigating it pretty well. And so from this hot air balloon, we look down and we say, oh, that person's doing pretty well. That soul's doing pretty well there. Now, let's imagine a narcissist. Let's just say there's the smallest flicker of light within their heart space, but they have no idea it's there. And everything around that bubble is just a storm of clouds. And they're bumping into things, and then that light flickers every once in a while and goes right to their head. And they see it quick, and then it goes out. Then their bubble just happens to bump in, because it's attracting clouds, another bubble with clouds. And we look at that other bubble with clouds, and we see, again, a small flicker of light, but this energetic bubble is actually like retracting the clouds. So the narcissist is pushing out their energy. Just get it away from me, get it away from me, get it away from me. It's painful, I'm scared, I'm terrified. The empath's bubble is like, I need to understand this, I need to understand this. Please give me all of your energy, I need to understand it in order to stay safe. And thus we have the two energies coming together. How do we break them apart when they are energetically glued to each other because they are both feeding off of each other? One of those persons, or both, have to find their light and their connection to above and their connection within. So how does one do that? The first is reprogramming the mind and the ego and developing some sort of relationship with a higher power. Coming into awareness that this is not just a human experience and there is a lot more going on here, and that there's a lot of support on the other side for us, is really important in order to start to understand ourselves. We also can start to understand how this energy works, and we can also start to heal the wounds within us through inner child healing and shadow work that allow for those wounds to really be full. So if you look at those two energetic bubbles storming with clouds, within those clouds there are these holes, and those are all the traumas that happened as a child. If we can fill those with light and truly bring that vibration of light back into that energetic being, it will not be a match for the other person with clouds. So typically, the one that has to do that is the empath. And the empaths that are listening to this are like, well, Cass, that's not fair. Not only do they emotionally and verbally abuse me, sometimes physically too, which is absolutely awful, and I'm very sorry. And again, if you are in a relationship and listening to this, please do seek out professional help to help you get through and out of that relationship. But you might be saying it's not fair that I have to put in the work in order to do this. Well, I hate to break it to you, but life isn't fair. And the whole point of coming to this earth is to learn, grow, and evolve and become more in tune with your true self. And so we have to come into our own light. We have to heal the wounds. We have to find our light within us. We have to start to understand why we came here. We have to start to understand who we really are. We have to start to change our reactions. We have to start to notice our triggers. We have to start to walk away. And no matter what kind of relationship you have on this earth with someone, if it is not serving your highest good and giving you more light than you had yesterday, you do not need it in your life. And walking away from someone that you love is the hardest thing to do. And I think as empaths, we recognize the divine light that exists within everyone. So at this point in the conversation, I want to recognize the fact that I do believe that every single soul on this planet, including narcissists, was created in divine essence of unconditional love and light. As a psychic medium, I have spoken with countless narcissists that are no longer here on this earth, that are now in the higher vibrational realm that I call the spirit world, that you may call heaven, that I also call a higher vibrational plane of unconditional love and light. Every single time I connect with a soul that was a narcissist, which I typically identify through their personality traits. So as a medium, I'll connect with their soul and I'll feel, and they'll share that in their human life, they were very up and down, and that they had very surface level emotions, and that they caused a lot of trauma and got very angry quickly. There are other different things that they show me too, but those are the most common. And so once I identify that this person was a narcissist, I always receive this feeling of unconditional love and apology for the family. And every single time I have connected with a narcissist in spirit, they have a complete understanding of what happened on earth, how it affected everyone, how deeply sorry they are for the experience, and how their soul evolved and maybe didn't evolve as much as it could have in their physical time here. Their souls are here to learn, evolve, and grow. And the only way to learn, evolve, and grow is to step into your power and to be the authentic version of yourself. As much as our minds create these narratives that we are stuck in situations, and I understand that people have families, and I understand that people are not able to just leave a situation due to the practical aspects of our human life. I also understand that our human minds and our egos create these boxes that keep us jailed in situations that we don't have to be in. Truly, the world is our oyster. Truly, we are the main characters of our own lives. Truly, we will be taken care of when we make decisions that are hard and risky, but are of our highest good. And it is so important for us to start to make those decisions, to start to come into our power, to not hide behind the trauma and the wounds. So as someone that was in several narcissistic and empathic relationships, where I was actually the narcissist in one and the empath in the other, and had narcissistic and empathic relationships as a child, I believe that it was the greatest gift from the universe, especially when it was my role to be the empath. I was broken down to absolutely nothing. I was always detached from my soul and searching to fill the energy field with anything I could in order to feel whole. And for me, that was drugs and alcohol and relationships that didn't serve me. But when I was with a narcissist, I was broken down because that person was feeding my wounds exactly what they needed in order to hurt me. And as I always say, the more darkness that we go through, the more light that can come from it. But it is absolutely our decision to make the leap to step into that light, to get to the bottom of our wounds and our trauma and break free. And in the mental health field, it is always talked about how our minds are so programmed and ingrained to stay, to keep us safe, the fight or flight response. While that is all true, there is something that can help you, and that is your true essence and your true soul. And so for anybody that is experiencing narcissistic abuse, my heart goes out to you because it is the hardest thing that I have ever had to go through. And I think back to myself shaking, laying on a floor, saying, I can't leave and I don't know what to do because I don't think I'll survive. And I think back to that girl and I think back to how my mind was so programmed to be in a fear-based state that I could not even see the way out. Nothing that anyone was going to tell me outside of myself would lead me out. I felt a very deep connection and a sense of love for my partner. And the only thing that helped me not only get out of that relationship, but heal from that relationship is finding myself. And that was the second hardest thing I've ever had to do. Because going back into your traumas and your wounds, not only from that relationship, but from childhood, I'd say that's tied for being the hardest thing I've ever had to do with the relationship. Nothing in this life that is worth something is ever easy. We can often think of life as circumstances outside of ourselves. The only thing that we really have in this life is ourselves. And we all have the capacity to tune into our inherent light and our inherent love vibration. And in doing so, we become a repellent for any energy that is less than that. It takes some major risks. It takes not feeling safe. It takes feeling alone. It takes feeling sad. It takes feeling in pain. My body was in pain after I left that relationship. I had to decondition and reprogram my nervous system to not react to stimuli that I took in as abuse. I had to reprogram and retrain every single way that I energetically took in information and processed my emotions. I did that through tuning into my inner child and my inner wounds and healing them through shadow work, healing them through meditation, creating a new narrative for myself, maintaining sobriety. I sat with myself in the vibration of judgment, of fear, of negativity, and started to recognize that the only thing that we really have in this lifetime is ourselves in the present moment, and no one's opinions and no one's judgments are ever going to matter really at all, but especially more than what you feel is right in your heart. We are not here arbitrarily. We're here to work through these exact issues. The only way that anyone is going to shift for the better, narcissist or empath, is when somebody starts tuning into themselves in the light, when somebody stops being an energetic match for the other. And it is the hardest thing you will ever have to do, but it is the most rewarding thing you will ever do in your life. And I truly believe that these types of relationships exist to get us into our darkest place, into our darkest wounds, into the darkest triggers, the darkest reactions, in order to transmute that darkness into light. Because that is the whole point of coming to Earth. To transmute the darkness into light, to raise our vibration, to have more of an understanding of the spiritual experience, for our souls to evolve and become better. I hope you enjoyed this episode and it provides some healing and light for you as you navigate your relationships in this context. And I will see you all next week to talk about this further.